Alright, I'm about to change out the bearings and brakes on my ATV. Took a look at the wheel when I was swapping out to my tracks and saw a lot of movement in my wheel, so time to do those bearings. And I figured while I got the wheels off, I'm going to swap out the brakes as well. So I'm starting on the side with the rear brake. There's only a rear brake on one side of my Polaris, so that guy's going to come off. Probably can't show you that well that without moving myself, that there's just a fair bit of play in this. So anyway, I'm going to get a socket, take this cotter pin out, loosen off the main bolt here, and then this hub should come off after I take off the brake. So I'll start with getting this pin out in a second and take that bolt out. Alright, now I'm going to take off the hex bolt here, using a 1 1/8 socket. I'm going to give myself a little extra leverage because I haven't been off in a while. There we go. Two washers. Next, I'm going to set that up and away. Oh, next step, take the brake off. I was already jumping to the thinking I was on the other wheel. So there's a couple bolts holding this brake on. 9/16. Just gonna make sure I'm going the right way first. That wasn't that snug at all. Bolt. I don't think I can use a socket on the bottom one, so I'll use my wrench. To make sure I torque these when I put them back in, because that seemed a little loose as well. If I can get a torque wrench on this bottom one, that is. I just have to suffer for tight. Alright, bolts are out. Brakes off. Actually, those brake pads don't look bad. I guess not using much for rear brakes. Alright, it's time to take this puppy off. Should be able to pull it, wiggle it off. So that was incredibly unpleasant. This guy was rusted on really bad. Finally got it out. It was actually putting a bolt, I happen to have one big one, through the holder for the brake carrier, putting a little bit of pressure on the back of the brake. I had little bolts here that fit through these guys, but they were too small and bent, and I'll cut them off in a second. But two, I got pretty nervous about. I didn't want to be scratching this up any worse. At least this was touching beneath, very tight to where the underneath where the brake actually connects. So don't think I did any damage to the brake rotor there, but I just slowly put a little bit of pressure, and then one on the other side wiggled a bit. It would move maybe a fraction of a millimeter, and I just continued to repeat that. It took about 15 minutes or so, and slowly but surely she came out. So now I can take the rest of this guy off. I've had it off once already, so all the bolts are loose. It just there's two bolts on each side. Not sure if you can. I should be able to see that. And then I used a little pry screwdriver to just pop up the edges and pull it out. These guys pull out in a second too. Then you got one top bolt out here, and this whole unit just pops out. Once I take this guy off and all the make sure all the rubber's off of it, I'm going to clean it up as best I can, but I'm also going to pop it. Well, second step, I'll pop it in the oven, but I got to get the bearing out. So that'll be the next video. So hold on a sec, or next part of this video. So the next step, I'm going to take my little, I think they're snap ring pliers, and take this snap ring out. You can see it's on the inside here. When I took this guy off too, the bearings are totally shot. I actually had bearings shooting out everywhere. Oh. There we go. I'm going to move. I'm going to set this down, and basically these guys just squeeze together, and you can. I'll clean this up before I try to take it out. Maybe there's a lot of gunk in here. See all this garbage. No wonder this thing wouldn't come out. It's just full of poop. Bought myself a used quad, so I knew it needed some love. The price reflected that, but anyways, I'm going to try to clean this up, and these guys will just pop together, and the ring will pop straight out, and then I can start hammering in out the bearings on this side. You can actually see them in there, and you shouldn't be able to. There should be another piece basically just fell apart, which came right apart. Which this is supposed to be one unit. The replacement that I'll show you in a bit is all one piece. All right. Okay, so I got all the bearing guts out. Still have the outer rim of the bearing itself to get out. So it comes out the top. That snap ring has been pulled out. So I'm just gonna take a big socket, an impact one. It just happens to fit right in there. I think it's 2 1/4 inches. I think is its size. But just gonna hammer on the back till it pops out almost flush with the top, and then I'll have to brace it up a bit to pound the rest of it out. And once I'm done that, I'm gonna stick this puppy in the oven and heat it up. And the bearings are already in the freezer getting cool, so hopefully that helps them drop in. But we'll come back to you in a minute once I'm done that. Alright, we're just about to put the seals in. These seals have been in the freezer. We're going to put the ovens in the hubs in the oven to warm them up. Right now they don't drop in, but you could certainly pound them in. They get started a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, time to put in the bearings. These guys are nice and hot, fresh from the oven. Still see the smoke coming off of them. These guys are fresh from the freezer, nice and cold. And they just drop in. So compared to what before, where they wouldn't go in without hammering, that's a heck of a lot easier. Oh, you dropped in. There you dropped in. Fantastic, man. That works phenomenal. So while I'm waiting for those bearings and hubs to cool down, I'm just going to put some grease on this guy on the back end, get it ready for the hub to go on. I won't be able to reach all of it, but at least I don't think anyways, but this part I'll definitely be able to put some grease on after the fact. So these guys are still a little hot to the touch, but I'm not going to be touching them too much. I'm going to put these snap rings back in place. Definitely worth having the right pliers to do the job. This is a cheap set, but you can get snap ring pliers that lock and do nice stuff like that. But these will do the job. I'm just going to cover the rings with a rag while I do it so they don't shoot across the room if they slip off the pliers. Hopefully that works well. All in all though, man, heating up these hub assemblies, wow, definitely did the job. Alright, just going to reassemble little pieces in the hub. These took these rubber guys out in the top because I didn't want those to go in the oven. So that just slides back in. Guy goes over on the other side. I'll start putting this back in together. Set aside all my bolts and everything up top up here just so I wouldn't lose track of them all. So step one, going to put this guy back on the bottom, obviously slide that through the axle through the middle, will just hang there for a bit. And I got a bunch of these guys will go back in, put the bolts in on the bottom, slide the top up, run the top bolt through. So it should be pretty straightforward. Alright, here we go. Just going to put this guy back in, slide that drive shaft through. These little guys just slide back in. I kind of go part way in and hold it in place. And they have the little plastic collar that goes around them. Other side. Tell by which side's exposed to more elements, which end goes in first. Probably should clean that up a bit more. I'm going to actually take that back out after this video and just clean it up. The top just comes down like that. Of course I put the bolt on the end of this guy so I wouldn't lose it. Now I have seen a bunch of videos that you should put some blue Loctite on these as well too, so I am going to pick up some and do that when I secure it all back down. Next, my hub with the brake rotor is needs to go on. I'm going to grease these teeth in here as well to go over top of those. Again, I'm using some marine grease for that. And I'll do that and I'll put it on. Hold on one sec. Alright, I got some grease inside, can't see it very well, inside the teeth here, so hopefully this will slide on. This guy was a real nightmare to get off. So I should be able to tighten that on and pull it forward. Brake pads, they were hanging up here. I just compressed the brakes a little bit to hopefully they'll just slide back on, and they will. So once I get that on, it'll actually have to be tight to the hub before the brakes go back in, so I'll just tuck those up. So now I'm just going to pull out the nut and washer and put it on and pull that forward. Alright, so my handy dandy manual. Highly recommend these suckers to climb in. Polaris Sportsman 7800, 600 as well, I think. Lists the hub nut. The rear is 80 foot-pounds of torque to tighten that thing too. So got my torque wrench. Just going to tighten that guy up, but just so listed 80